From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Anxiety Project podcast. Welcome to episode 335. I'm Brad Robinson. Today, we are diving into anxiety. What is anxiety and what can we do about it? Where do we go when we are feeling overwhelmed and catastrophizing? This is me in my 20s when my life hit a brick wall and I suffered from agoraphobia where I couldn't leave my house. I was scared of fear itself, and I was suffering from severe health anxiety where I was obsessing over my doctor and when I could see her next. And this led me to answers. It led me to where I am now. So let's talk about anxiety, and please share this with someone you know, which is everyone at some point in their life dealing with anxiety. It's hard to believe that this isn't taught in school. Like, it blows my mind when I think about it. When I get a new client, it's the beginning is always this. Yeah, everything in my life has become unmanageable and everything is scattered. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Their mind is a mess. This was my mind. This is your mind. This is everybody's mind at some point. It's a mess. I don't know where to go. That's the key word here. Now let's look at other people's definition of anxiety. Specifically, Søren Kierkegaard. He's an existential philosopher. I really like his work. He saw anxiety as the overwhelming feeling that comes from facing the myriad of choices and possibilities that define human existence, known as the dizziness of freedom. Now, this is something I learned, right? As a parent, you don't give your child too many options. They don't like that. That makes them even more stressed and anxious. You give them a couple of options to choose from, and they love that. So kids love that, and we all love that as adults. We love to have a couple of choices rather than a library of things to choose from. Does this sound familiar? Netflix. I've done this, dozens of times. You go on Netflix and you're sitting there for 15 minutes deciding what to watch. And then I end up not watching anything. And I would just wasted time. I just felt anxious and more stressed. Anxiety arises from the heavy burden of individual responsibility that freedom entails. It is a reminder that our lives and identities are not predetermined, but are actively constructed through our choices. Again, the freedom and choices bit, really important. You have all this freedom to do whatever you want. That gives you anxiety. The Heidegger, Sartre, and Camus perspective, these thinkers followed Kierkegaard's ideas, viewing anxiety as a core aspect of being human, an inevitable response to the inherent conditions of existence. Rather than a symptom to be cured, anxiety's discomfort can open individuals to unique opportunities for transformation and a deeper understanding of themselves and their world. Now, anxiety is freeze, emotion, imagine. Novelty occurs. We go through our day-to-day lives. with a certain frame. The routine's the same. And so we don't have to expend much emotional and mental energy because the degree of anxiety determines how much mental and physical energy we need to deal with that unknown. And that makes us what? Curse. Right? It goes, damn it. Because now something that should be is not being, right? And I'm going to play a clip here from Jordan Peterson. It's perfect. This sums up anxiety beautifully. Check this out.
Imagine that you've come to this talk tonight because you've decided to aim up. And maybe you haven't formulated that precisely explicitly, but something is driving you in this direction. And then you come to the talk and you find out that I'm talking about something that isn't what you expected, and it doesn't seem to be moving you along on your pathway forward to that end. What's going to happen is you're going to be disappointed. And you might be anxious too. You're going to be disappointed because disappointment signals that you're experiencing something that's not relevant to the goal that you are attempting to pursue and that might in fact be interfering with it. That's what negative emotion does. And maybe if you're disappointed in what I say, that also makes you anxious because you assumed that you would come here and I would say something relevant because you assumed that you knew who I was, and then it turned out that I didn't, and then you don't know who I am, and then you don't know what you're doing here, and then you get anxious. And the reason you get anxious is because that's what anxiety is for. It tells you when the pathway to your goal has been disrupted, so multiple pathways have now emerged. So imagine you're driving your car to work and it quits. And what happens is you get anxious. And the reason you get anxious is because, well, you were beetling along quite nicely in your world and everything was reduced to like a unidimensional simplicity. You weren't in a car as an object, you were in a thing that took you to where you wanted to go, and it was just doing what it was supposed to be doing, tracking you along the pathway to your goal. And then it fails and you're off on the side of the road and you get anxious because how the hell are you going to get to work? And what if you don't get to work? And is your boss not going to be very happy with you? And maybe this is the third mistake you've made this week. And what if you get fired? And weren't you an idiot for buying this car? Maybe you shouldn't have a car at all. Maybe you should have walked to work. And, maybe you should take a bicycle because after all, that would save the planet. And, and maybe now you have to take your car to a mechanic. But the last time you went to the mechanic, you got ripped off because you're too stupid about vehicles to manage one, and you're kind of stupid about technology in general. And aren't you stupid? And maybe you're too stupid, and isn't your wife going to? That's anxiety, right? And that's the emergence of a multiplicity of pathways, right? And so what anxiety signifies is the degeneration of an attentional hierarchy into multiplicity. And the reason you get anxious and it feels bad is because now your body can't compute how much energy you have to put out in order to get to your goal. And so you can't organize the world. You're apt to use more resources than you'll replenish. And if you continue to do that, then you'll die. And so anxiety is a signal that complexity has reemerged, chaos. That's the eternal dragon of chaos. Chaos has reemerged because your narrative has collapsed.
Beautifully put. Chaos emerged, and now you have to there's two options. One, you shrink back. So for me, when I was dealing with health anxiety, I had two options. One, confront it. Two, shrink back into what was familiar. But I couldn't, because once you're awake to the anxiety, it's like trying to go to sleep when there's a snake behind your refrigerator. You just can't do that. You have to deal with the damn snake. And so people, like his example, the car breaks down, you either curse and, curse God and walk down that road, or you have to readjust and reorient your frame. Say, now I have to be the solver of the problem. You have to take on the heroic archetype And what's interesting about that is Harry Potter chases the golden snitch, the thing that glimmers and flits around. Peterson here mentions chaos emerging. The golden snitch, believe this or not, is round chaos. It's the thing that when you attain it, you win the set of all games. And so something calls to you, the burning bush, Moses, and the hero archetype chooses to look into the unknown, into chaos, and to venture forth knowing their frame of mind is that something is worth attaining in the chaos, that it's going to strengthen me as an individual. I'm going to grow. Chaos usually, as Peterson usually talks about, is represented as the dragon. The dragon always hoards treasure. When you confront the dragon voluntarily, you're going to gain information as a consequence. There's always that fear that, oh, this is going to kill me. Yeah, like seriously. And then this is going to disrupt this aspect of my life. How am I going to, quit this thing? And how am I going to incorporate this? That's too difficult. And so Peterson's talking about that very thing where the car breaks down and all of these snakes emerge of how are you going to deal with the complexity of the situation? In my 20s, I was suffering, I was debilitated by anxiety. There were too many pathways in front of me. I was engaging in sexual behavior that was causing, friction between the people I was seeing, and I lacked self-confidence, and so I needed validation from people, and I felt insecure, and I tried to, cover up the pain and the feeling of meaninglessness with alcohol, drugs, television, and everything got worse for me. And to the point where that meaninglessness made itself known to me as anxiety. It turned into a message. You have to approach chaos with the heroic archetype in mind. That this is now your burden. There's something to attain here in this unknown. That's really important to understand. A lot of people can't move past that point where the things that they're doing in their life is not working for them. They have to readjust and destroy much of their identity in order to move beyond and to be, at peace or to rise above their anxiety. It's not about eliminating anxiety, because you can't eliminate something that's just natural to you, that's natural to the human condition. We need this. We need to respond to that perceived snake in the grass, even though if it's a stick. If our peripheral vision perceives something as snake-like and we jump back, that's important to our being. Because it's better to expend that energy on something that isn't a snake than to risk the possibility of it being a snake and it biting us and killing us. So we have this ingrained reptilian response to things that could potentially kill us. Right? Bugs tend to gross us out. A lot of bugs have killed us. A lot of reptilian snakes, right? That's why we're so innate. That fear is so innate. It's easy to fear a snake rather than teach someone to fear a handgun, for example. It's much quicker to develop that fear. C.S. Lewis points out in his book, Mere Christianity, the battle is faith and reason on one side and emotion and imagination on the other. That's so important to understand because we have the emotion that we, you know, give into, the anxiety, the frustration. We establish this victim-like mode of being in the world. We end up becoming comfortable being that victim. Our families tend to lean on us. It's analgesic to get the pat on the back, to get that attention. And then we end up being a burden to the people around us. We become comfortable staying at home. It becomes a habit to avoid work and real responsibilities. And this was me in my 20s when I was suffering from health anxiety. I would not call into work. And then when I would call into work, I remember one point I said, I made a mistake calling in. I don't want to come in tomorrow because I couldn't sleep because I was too overly anxious. Now, when you are anxious, like I said, you have to look into what you're anxious about. For me, I had no confidence in my health whatsoever. No confidence. So what I had to do was I had to build a healthy identity. So you have to move out of this frame into a new one. So then you have to start from square one. People don't want to start from square one. It's very difficult. You have to be willing to be a fool. The fool is the precursor to the savior, the hero. At first, there is the fool who fails, and you have to be comfortable with failing. I failed so many times. You just have to keep going. But you have to keep going with the frame in mind saying that this is progress. This is how you have to talk to yourself. This is progress. This is what's necessary for the new identity to be ingrained. You will feel like an imposter, but you have to keep acting this out. David Goggins, the ultra marathon, a former Navy SEAL superhero, this guy started out with this amazing outlook on his failure. When he couldn't ride the elliptical, he would swim. And then when he couldn't swim, he would run. And when he couldn't run, he would walk. And when he couldn't walk, he would lift weights. So he was just stretching his competency. And he then built on these internal beliefs. Because I had these beliefs. I'm not healthy. Well, I had to change my diet, which I eventually did. And I started with the small things. I had to build up my competency. I quit caffeine. Okay, it's me. I can do that. Now quit eating this sugar. Yeah, I can do that. Quit eating at this certain time of day. I can do that. And then I was building up this confidence at the same time as this competence. And then eventually I became this healthy. Well, I had the confidence of a healthy person. And this greatly reduced my anxiety. But you start off as ignorant, and that's okay. It's humbling to start from here. Goggins loves square one. He thrives there because we all forget. The successful people forget where they come from. You have to go back to where you've come from to really appreciate where you are now. But also the lessons are where you came from, that hell, the unknown, being ignorant, learning, putting in the work. That's where meaning comes from. I talked about this 2 episodes ago. Where does meaning come from? Well, it comes from the struggle. It comes from the unknown. You have to put yourself in what's unfamiliar. People who are suffering from health anxiety, they're uncertain about their health, right? And there's something there that's speaking to them. I think about this all the time. People who are overweight, who are obese, there's this voice in them that is saying, "Oh, you're not well. You're not well. You're unhealthy." Or you're smoking. There's that voice. You're not well. And they push it away. Okay? So they push it away. They go do their thing. They smoke. They drink. They eat. They binge, right? And then something happens where they get an illness of some kind, inflammation, aches and pains, rash, some sort of thing comes up where they have to go to the doctor. And then the voice comes up again. You're not well. See, you're not well. You're smoking. You're eating too many junk processed foods. You're drinking too much. And the voice will haunt you. You think you can push it away, but when novelty comes around, that ache and pain, that doctor visit, the blood work that you're expecting to get back and you're worried about, remember that novelty, well, your anxiety is operating to the degree of the novelty, right? If it's something if you are overweight and you know it and the voice is nagging you and it's saying, "I told you so," it could be something serious, then obviously your anxiety is going to be extremely high when you're expecting some sort of diagnosis or some test results. But if you're a healthy person, you're running every day, you're eating very cleanly, you're fasting, then that person is not going to be as anxious. They've built up this healthy, confident identity. So I had to build up this identity over time. It was no easy thing. It took me years, but you have to build it. I miss that process too, by the way. That when I was back there with that anxiety disorder, when I was living my old self, everything was chaos, right? There was too much freedom in my life. I had no structure at all. Anxiety disorder is order that is disrupted. There's no structure like we've talked about at the beginning. And Peterson, you have to have a frame to follow. Routine is so important. People just don't like routine. People are like, I just want to live in this moment. I want to live like Tyler Durden in Fight Club. I just want to live and follow the impulses and, run wild. It's like, yeah, that'll last a weekend. And then on Monday, you'll have an existential crisis. C.S. Lewis also mentions in his book that you will be, what would you say, a slave to your moods and desires unless you have a structure to follow. We need a structure in our lives. I can't stress this to you enough. I love the existentialists because their outlook on life is that, well, we get comfortable in our known territory, but then something happens, like the example I gave earlier, when you're obese or when you're smoking, a pain, something novel comes up into your life, chaos, and then you suddenly realize, oh yeah, I'm not safe here. Yeah, there is this limitation to existence. I'm not prepared. And when you're anxious about something, look towards the anxiety and say, how can I prepare for that? How do you approach these harsh questions? Like I did when I was, 26, when I decided to change, I had to look into anxiety. My path from being this chaotic, flamboyant, free, lively, impulsive guy shifted to, I need a coach someone who understands what I'm going through, the chaos that I'm going through, the health anxiety that I'm going through, the constant worry, the obsessions, the rumination, the symptom checking, the catastrophic thoughts. I can't seem to get a grip on all of this. And that mentor provided me with a structure. I was able to move forward. When I saw progress, I fell in love with the journey. You fall in love with the journey because you see some results coming in. You start to let go of that chaotic lifestyle and you start to incorporate things that bring you some peace, that you finally gain wisdom. You gain wisdom from the teachings and the life experiences, your willingness to get up early and put in the work. Then you will see the results. You will then gain respect for yourself. You will then gain competency. You will then create this new identity of healthy, strong, brave person. And that's where I'm going to leave you on this podcast episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I hope this gave you a great, overview of anxiety. It's very simple, but it can be very complicated to someone who is suffering. I know what it's like. When I came across a podcast talking about anxiety, I found so much relief in that. And I hope you guys find relief in this episode because anxiety is very basic once you know it and you can overcome it. You just need a structure. Rise above anxiety. I'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. Make sure to go to unpluganxiety.com and check out my anxiety recovery program. Everything that worked for me, I include in this program, including a releasing trauma exercise, meditations, a journal where you can plan and face the fears that you're not realizing that are hidden within the unconscious mind. Everything that you do in this program is unraveling the unconscious and all of the underlying fears and limiting beliefs that are holding you back from reaching your truer self. Go check that out. What are you waiting for?